What's up, fight fans? Ryan Thomas here on the Thomas Take Sports podcast. Whether you're tuning in on the YouTube channel, the Facebook page, or any audio podcasting platforms, I greatly appreciate the love and support, the viewers and listeners of the podcast that have continued to support the show since the beginning. Of course, I wanted to hop on here and give my take on just the latest headlines within mixed martial arts. And of course, those always seem to start with none other than the notorious one, Conor McGregor. Of course, it's well known that Conor McGregor loves to talk a big game. It's well known that he loves to hype up the opposition, whether he's facing them or not. And you could refer to it as hyping them up. You could refer to it as a tirade. You could refer to it as putting them on blast. But simply put, Conor McGregor has done this over the course of the last 10 years, a time or two. It all started back in 2014 with Jose Aldo calling his shot, landing that shot, and winning the UFC Featherweight Championship, and calling his shot that he would be the first simultaneous champ in UFC history, moving up a weight class to 155 pounds, taking on Eddie Alvarez at UFC 205, Madison Square Garden, the first UFC event in Madison Square Garden in their history, to one of the highest gates, one of the best performances that the world has ever seen inside the UFC octagon. But that was a long time ago. That was 2015, 2016, in that time range. And a lot has transpired within the career of Conor McGregor and within the UFC as the UFC continues to surge on, finding new stars, finding new champions as the sport continues to evolve. So, of course, we have heard the news that Conor McGregor's official return will be June 29th against Iron Michael Chandler. And, okay, I'm really pumped for this fight. This was the fight that I wanted. This is the fight that we're getting. This is the fight that I truly believe is the right fight for both guys. And I'm really excited for June 29th. So much so that in my new place, I felt the need to obviously get a TV. I needed a TV, but I wanted to really get one that popped. Getting a 65-inch TV with the thought that, hey, I'll be able to watch Conor McGregor on this in a couple weeks in his return to the UFC octagon with some buddies coming over. That'll be a good time, right? A good night. Good to have Conor McGregor back active. It's what's best for the sport when the biggest superstar in the sport is competing at the highest of levels. So, of course, with all that being said, Conor McGregor sounds off in kind of a impromptu form and fashion where we see Conor McGregor in this event type setting for charity, and it was a gambling event for charity, which I found to be kind of ironic. But nonetheless, he's asked questions kind of teed up for him on a few names, and this is a bit of a Q&A reacting to it. And he first reacts to Kamaru Usman and Ilia Topuria. Now, Kamaru Usman, longtime UFC welterweight champion, had a great run as a UFC welterweight king. He knocked out Jorge Masvidal, beat Colby Covington not once but twice, beat Gilbert Burns, faced any number one contender that they put in front of him, was a model champion, I would say, for the UFC. And at one point, it was argued that he was the pound-for-pound number one fighter on planet Earth, until one head kick knockout pretty much destroyed that ranking, sent his career to the path that it's on now, coming off of two big losses to Leon Edwards, a loss to Khamzat Chimaev in a short notice fight, I might add, in a fight that I thought he could have won, but it's another topic for another day. But nonetheless, there are fighters that I think there's fair game to say things about that kind of fall in line with where Conor McGregor is at this current time. And when it was teed up for Conor McGregor to talk about Kamaru Usman, I did not anticipate McGregor saying much of anything, because at this point, Kamaru Usman's kind of on the outside looking in of the scene that is mixed martial arts. I think he's doing some other ventures. He's got his podcast with Henry Cejudo. He's got a lot of other things that he's focusing on, along with being with his daughter, being there for his daughter, I should say. And I didn't think that McGregor would actually even dare to respond to the questions on Usman or the relevancy of Usman. I think Kamaru Usman's still a great fighter. I don't know if he'll be a champion again. I don't know if Kamaru Usman knows if he'll be a champion again at this current point. But to refer to Kamaru Usman as a bum, I think would be a little bit disrespectful. Referring to Ilia Topuria as a bum. Now, these are the things that Conor McGregor does. I truly don't believe in Conor McGregor's heart of hearts that he believes in his own right that Kamaru Usman is a bum. He was a great champion. He had a great run. He did a lot of great things in this sport, much like Conor McGregor. So for Conor McGregor to say that Usman's a bum for the reasons that he did kind of fall in line with what has happened in McGregor's career. Former champion who fell short to Khabib and was not able to get back into that title picture, losing 2 straight fights to Dustin Poirier. So very similar. It's just different weight classes, but very similar in terms of what has happened to Kamaru Usman and to Conor McGregor's respective careers. Now, McGregor had the injury. Usman had the knockout loss to Leon Edwards, which set him back time-wise and in a return. I feel like he even came back too soon, even beyond that knockout loss. But McGregor just sounds off and eviscerates Kamaru Usman in the form and fashion that he's done with other fighters a time or two who I would say were bums in comparison to Kamaru Usman. Now, Ilia Topuria, who is the reigning UFC featherweight champion, is coming off of the biggest win of his career, obviously, knocking out the pound-for-pound #1 fighter on planet Earth at that time, Alexander Volkanovski, who suffered a similar fate to Kamaru Usman with a head kick loss, of course, to Islam Makhachev, and then a devastating knockout punch that was landed by Ilia Topuria. And I felt like, Volkanovski, rather, came back far too soon from that loss versus Makhachev and put his health on the line against a big, young power puncher in Ilia Topuria. So, quite frankly, Topuria is on top of the world. He's the 145-pound champion. He's the best that the weight class has to offer. His next title fight will more likely than not be a rematch against Alexander Volkanovski. So 145, Conor McGregor's next fight at 170. I would look at that as a schoolyard term of punching down. Why punch down? Why not punch up? If anything, right? Why not, throw shade to a name like an Israel Adesanya, or why not throw shade to a name like Leon Edwards, which I think is a more realistic fight because Izzy is relevant. Despite his loss to Sean Strickland, he's going to try to get that back, try to get that title back, probably against Dricus du Plessis. I'm not saying Conor's fighting at 185 anytime soon, but Israel Adesanya is always in that current relevant status, was the most recent UFC superstar post McGregor struggles and even pre a little bit. And even in the sense of Leon Edwards, I felt like that's the fight right now to get the McGregor fan base and the UFC fan base together, the hardcore fans that love Leon, that love Conor, and the casual fans that haven't really watched much of the sport, but that want to see Conor McGregor actually fight for a title in their fanhood, where they might not have been fans during that time where he's fighting Chad Mendez and Jose Aldo and Eddie Alvarez and even Khabib, or maybe they became fans post Conor fighting Khabib. But my take on the entire McGregor tirade is that the opportunity was kind of missed for Conor to talk about specifically whether or not he fights Dustin Poirier, if Poirier gets past Islam on next Saturday, or whether or not Conor then fights, let's just say, Leon Edwards after Conor were to defeat Michael Chandler, if in fact he does so. So to me, those are the only 2 guys that Conor should be talking about, or 3 guys rather that Conor should be talking about. Should be Islam Makhachev, Dustin Poirier, or Leon Edwards. Those are the names that I'd be, first to bring up. Of course, the question was from a fan. He had to answer the question, but I think the form and fashion in which he answered it kind of diluted the headlines a little bit on what McGregor should have been talking about from the jump, what McGregor would go on to eventually talk about in the Q&A, but I don't think he did it nearly enough. And in order to stay relevant, you have to call out someone that is relevant. Kamaru Usman's not fighting. Ilia Topuria is a 145-pound fighter. So if Conor has any plans on fighting at 145 anytime soon, which I don't think he does, why even bother talking about these fighters? So that's my take on it. And then even further cementing this point, Conor McGregor talking about Sean O'Malley. This was way out of left field for me. I feel like there is a lot of reasons to look at this as a potential beef between the two, whereas Sean O'Malley was saying things about Conor was saying things about O'Malley, but Conor, tried to kind of squash it, say that he respects O'Malley, say that he, is rooting for O'Malley to get it done and continue to be a champion. So to me, that was more of like, we were friends, we're friendly, we said some things about each other, but I respect you. I'm just saying things to kind of get clicks, which also delegitimizes a McGregor interview, which at one point was the biggest interview in the game. So something to take a look at. And of course, we're going to see Conor talk more and more about his fight with Michael Chandler. We're also going to see Conor talk more and more about other fighters. It's just what he does. I just feel the way he's doing it is a far cry from the way he used to do it. The way he used to do it was what made him a superstar, calling out the guys that you actually have the prospects of fighting, not calling out guys that you have no prospects of fighting anytime in the near future. So that's my take on it. It was a polarizing interview. Check it out. I believe it's on the MacLife.com. Conor McGregor just goes on this epic tirade against the current MMA landscape. Granted, I do feel like the UFC championship landscape has like this trickle-down effect. Heavyweight, you got John Jones. Light heavyweight, you got Alex Pereira. Middleweight, you got Dricus du Plessis. Welterweight, Leon Edwards. 155 lightweight, you got Islam Makhachev. 145, Ilia Topuria. 135, Sean O'Malley. And 125, of course, you got Alexander Pantoja. And there's a lot of new guys in that mix. That's a far cry from the mix that McGregor was in 3 years ago when he was fighting Dustin Poirier. So very interesting times. The sport continues to evolve. And of course, I am very pumped up, though, nonetheless, to see McGregor back in the octagon June 29th. Iron Michael Chandler will be the opponent, of course, at UFC. What will that be? 302, I believe. So very much looking forward to it. And I truly believe that there is no spectacle like, 303. There'll be no spectacle quite like the return of Conor McGregor, coming off of a devastating leg injury 3 years ago. It's been 3 years since he fought. I'm greatly looking forward to seeing his comeback. Thank you so much for tuning into the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. I'm Ryan Thomas. Keep punching.